Hey, this is Tim Davis with DoControl. Thanks for joining us today on our office hours. Hopefully you're getting a lot of value out of these. We enjoy doing them, so we hope you enjoy watching and participating and that you're learning some great things from these about SaaS security in general and about what we're doing here at DoControl, right? Here at DoControl, we're all about SaaS security as a platform, really focused on helping you protect the data and the configurations, we're basically all the different risk and attack vectors that exist within your SaaS platforms, the part that are your part of the shared responsibility model as a SaaS user and SaaS tenant, renter or owner or participant, whatever the correct term there is. This is where we want to help people, right? So just like in the IaaS world, where you use CNAPP tools to help you secure those infrastructure as a service platforms, that's where we want to help you on your SaaS platform. So today we're going to talk about Zoom. Zoom's not a typical use case that's top of mind for a lot of people that we talk with. It's a lot of times it's more something around file sharing apps, whether that's the Microsoft 365 apps, Teams, Slack, Google, things where people are typically thinking in SaaS about data loss and information sharing type applications. But hey, we're sharing a lot of information over Zoom, right? We're doing more and more Zooms every day, right, wrong, good, bad, or indifferent. That's where we are. That's the world we live in. Probably not going away anytime soon. So let's talk a little bit about how DoControl can help you with Zoom. And I'm just going to go through some demo, talk about a couple of different use cases that are interesting today. Certainly, let us know if you have any questions. If you want to know more, certainly you can contact us and we'd be happy to, go deeper and walk into some of these things with you as well. So with that, let me share my screen. Of course, it's not a Zoom call if you don't talk about, hey, let me share my screen. I think that's required. Since it's just me right now, I guess nobody's on mute, so we don't have to worry about that piece of it. But let's jump in and look at a couple of real world examples here, right? So one would be you do Zoom calls for like an HR onboarding call, right? So, people aren't going to offices as much anymore, more and more remote work. So someone starts with your organization. They've got to do onboarding, right? And as part of that, they need to give things like, bank account information because, hey, they're probably not working for free. They want to get paid. They maybe have to provide some, other types of identification documents that are, proof of citizenship and things like that. So those things might get discussed on a HR onboarding call. So guess what happens? Now I've got potentially, PII inside of this meeting, maybe even inside the transcript and possibly the chat, right? So, hey, well, let me just, chat this to you, my passport number, so you can verify my, citizenship or something like that. Or here, rather than calling it out, telling it to you, whatever, right? So these things can end up in chat. They can definitely end up in the transcript of the meeting itself. What do we do about that, right? Well, first of all, we can tell you that that's happened, right? So this is our workflow engine. This is our DoControl no-code workflow canvas, right? And this is our event-driven architecture, right? So when something happens in a SaaS platform, that's an event. And the event, rather than us having to ask the SaaS platform for interesting information, the event tells DoControl, the SaaS tells DoControl about the event, right? So now we know that there's been a Zoom recording completed, right? So somebody's done a Zoom, the recording's completed. Now we're going to look to see a couple of things. One is we're going to look to see if that user is in one of our HR groups, right? Because again, we're looking at a specific use case around that HR onboarding tool or onboarding process, right? And did PII. But this doesn't have to be HR onboarding, of course. This could be looking at all of your meetings. This could be looking at meetings that maybe with your finance team and they're sharing certain types of information. Maybe this is a help desk call. And a lot of times PII gets shared over with help desk as well, right? So lots of different applications here. This is just one example of this, HR onboarding. So we want to understand, the user is in HR, the person who hosted the call, and then we want to look at chat transcript types of files that are associated with that. And then we want to run these through a PII scan, right? And we'll look for things like bank account numbers, bank routing numbers, passport, social security, the typical types of information that get provided to an HR rep at a company when someone is starting and they're doing that initial onboarding, right? So let's scan, let's see if it's there. If it is, then let's first of all notify SecOps team, hey, we've got this potential issue here. So we'll send them a notification in Slack. This could be, opening a ticket, other things as well. And then let's go ahead and delete the recording, right? We've got information, we've got PII stored somewhere. We don't want it stored. Let's go ahead and delete that. If there's no PII in the recording, then let's just end the workflow and move on, right? So no harm, no foul, nothing happened there, right? So just an example. Of course, you can customize this to your specific needs, your specific use cases, whether that's opening tickets before you delete the recordings, letting the user know if you want to do even some things around user coaching with your HR team and things like that. You can absolutely do all of that too. All those capabilities are there within our workflow engine, our tool to help you as you're doing SaaS security. So with that in mind, let's maybe talk about another example, a little bit more general example use case, right? So in this case, what I'm looking at here is we've got a Zoom recording that's completed, right? So, but they didn't put a passcode on the recording. So by default, when you record to cloud in Zoom, and you don't, if you don't put a passcode on that recording, then that file is actually shared publicly. Anybody who gets the link can access it, right? If they don't have the passcode, it's just wide open. So not something that's typically ideal for most people. Now, you may be doing things like I'm doing today, where it's a webinar where, hey, we want people to hear it. We want people to know what's going on. And that's fine. There may be some exceptions to that. But generally speaking, for the most part, you're having internal communications or you're talking with even third parties, but that's not the kind of thing typically you want generally everyone in the world to have access to. So, but as we know, users make mistakes, right? They forget to put passcodes on cloud recordings. Sometimes maybe it's a system problem, maybe it's a system error. They didn't get signed into their Zoom client properly, so the host didn't get assigned and the recording didn't happen that way. I've seen that happen before. Could just be user error, could be just, they just made a mistake. It happens, we're humans, we all make mistakes, right? It's the great thing about automation is automation's there to catch you when you fall, right? So that's what this workflow will do. We detect that there's been a Zoom cloud recording that's been completed, but it does not have a passcode on it. So it's not password protected. So now what do we want to do? Well, it really depends, right? And as an information security professional, as the person responsible for securing your Zoom environment and your SaaS environments, you may not really know what the right decision here is. Who does know? Well, the user might know. So let's ask the user. So we can, using our automation, send the user an email in this case, and tell them that, hey, we've got action required around your Zoom recording, and we'll give them the name of the recording so they have some context of what's going on. And we'll send them an email that looks something like this, right? Say, hey, user, your Zoom recording was shared publicly without a passcode. Please select what you want us to do about that, right? This is a policy violation, and we need to help us understand how we can help you get back into compliance here, right? It might be that meeting didn't really matter. It wasn't that important. They recorded it, but don't really need it anymore or didn't really need it to begin with. And they might just select delete recording here, in which case we will automatically delete that recording for them. And now there's no recording out there that's shared publicly. It might be that they say, oh, I just messed up. I didn't, I forgot to add a passcode, or, I don't know what happened, but, let me just add that passcode. So we don't want the user to have to go into Zoom and then, go add the passcode. We definitely don't want the you as an information security professional to have to go into Zoom and add that passcode for that user, right? The manual process, we don't want to do that, right? So with this click, with the user clicks add passcode, we can actually make a request into Zoom and for that meeting ID and add the passcode to it. And then we say, okay, well, you just added a passcode. And by the way, you can make this a variable if you like as well, right? So it's not the same passcode that gets added every time somebody clicks this. And then you might say, okay, well, how does the user know? All right, I added a passcode to their recording, but how do they know what it was? Well, we can also tell Zoom, send an email to the host, to the person who initiated the recording with the new passcode that's been added. So now that they have it, so they can share it with the people who need to have access to that meeting. And then, of course, it might be that the user says, I don't really know what to do here. I don't feel like either one of these fit my category, fit my, fit how to solve this problem. Maybe I'm just confused, whatever. So we can have them click to open a help desk ticket and we will open a ticket for them. Automatically in your system, put the relevant information in there, the user, the meeting ID, what drove them to create the ticket, so that whoever, gets this ticket has the context. They don't have to call the user and, work through things, right? They've already got some context. They already know what to expect as they get here, right? So again, this is just adding some very simple automation to help solve a pretty straightforward problem for, from a data security perspective around Zoom. Just a couple of examples of the kinds of things we can do. Again, all kinds of customization, all kinds of options here for making things interactive and that type of thing. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is that what if we send this user this decision request, this email, and they do nothing, right? I always call this the passive aggressive approach, right? You ask the user, hey, tell us how you want to proceed here, and they just ignore you. Think, that doesn't really matter, who cares, whatever, right? So you can also set what we call a timeout or a default option. So you can see here, there's a timeout option specified here, and I can make this any of the available options for me, or I can certainly make that a fourth option. So in this case, what I've said is if the user doesn't really care enough to, go create a passcode for this or ask for help, let's just delete the recording because maybe it's not that important. That may not be what you want to do. You may want to create a ticket or go ahead and add the passcode for them, and that's fine. All you got to do in that case is connect the timeout to the action that you want it to take. So very straightforward, easy to do. And you can make sure that all those use cases get taken care of, right? So wanted to talk about the workflows first and foremost around Zoom, because that's the real time-saving and efficiency-driving piece of the DoControl platform, is this ability to automate these workflows, right? And to pull in context around what's going on, like whether that was the example around, oh, hey, this is an HR user, so there's a high, doing an onboarding call, so this is a very high likelihood that there could be some PII being shared here. So the ability to pull in that context is very beneficial and very valuable within the DoControl platform. Or in this case, the ability to be interactive, the one we just looked through at, where and ask the user, hey, we're seeing something, kind of coach that user on how should we proceed to resolve this, policy violation that we see, from your activity, right? And getting that input from the user because they're going to understand the business context typically a little better than maybe the person who's working on security all day, every day will, right? And at least it's valuable to have their input, if nothing else. So let's look at some other, more or some other capabilities that we can just talk about from a Zoom perspective as well, right? So, we're kind of looking at this in the workflows. We're looking at events and what's happening within the context of the real actions that are happening here in real time. But of course, if you deploy a tool like DoControl, then you're going to also have history as well, right? So there's going to be things that have happened in the past. So I might want to go back and look and say, where are all of my meetings that are not passcode protected, right? So I can easily search through all of my Zoom meetings that are in my environment, and I can find ones that that don't have passcode protection. And we can also show you, if they've been shared, all right? And then you can see that in this case, many of these are shared publicly, and I can add in filter for that as well, to, just look at ones that are public. So easy to do. And then what I can see is how many times has this meeting been viewed? And then has this meeting been downloaded, right? That might be really important to know, because I might see something like, oh, well, here's the secret confidential contract Zoom meeting, right? So obviously this was something we did for testing purposes, but from the context of the meeting, which we surfed, you might understand that, hey, this was something that was, not, maybe this was the board meeting, right? Maybe this was something that was very sensitive. And now I see that it's shared publicly. It doesn't have a passcode. And now I see that, oh yeah, this has been viewed and this has been downloaded. Okay. Now I've got, some things that I need to go look at and investigate, right? So this is the kind of information we give to you. By the way, we can also help you with, seeing, if that's been downloaded to your other SaaS applications, if it's been, exfiltrated that way as well. It's not our topic for today, but we'll be happy to share more with you about that if you'd like to know more about how we can help there. Finally, let me talk about alerts, right? So it's one thing to have to come in and look for these things, which typically people do historically, right? So, you think about deploying a tool like DoControl, you're going to look at the history of what's happened, and then, go fix those things up over time. But you may also, and you should also create the workflows that are going to help you from the point in time you deploy them going forward to make sure that you don't have meetings like this without passcode protection, again, because the workflow is going to catch that, and it's going to either have the user add a passcode or delete the recording so that it's not out there anymore, right? So, but you may also have specific, so if we look at our alerting system here, and let's choose Zoom, we'll look at any alerts related to Zoom, right? So what we see is that we can actually create an alert to tell you, right? So what's going on here in the alert versus the asset inventory, right? So this is us looking at things about the recording, context around the recording. Maybe it's keywords that are in the meeting name. It could be other sets of information, metadata, primarily in this case, around the meeting event itself, right? And so what we're doing then in alert is just like it implies, right? Rather than sort of waiting for you to be, reactive and come look for things and find, oh, hey, well, somebody, shared this, cloud recording, and I want to see what's going on here. That's then this is us saying, hey, we think this is something that is, interesting, that's important, and we want to make you aware of it so that you have the opportunity to, remediate and respond to that, right? And so you've got our remediation options over here that you can select and, go to right away. You can obviously go to Zoom and remediate this as well. Well, what we see here, two important things I want to highlight right on this alert. One is that we see that it's 2 sensitive cloud recordings, right? So I can drill into the details and get the specific information about that. So I can see that here. But also, if I go back to my alert, I can also see an idea of what's going on from a behavior perspective, right? So I can see that there are related alerts. And I see, by the way, the user, what type of user they are, what departments they're in, are they active, or, someone who's, not active, what their role is in the organization. Again, this is us providing you context, right? So we understand what's going on. And then I can see related alerts as well. Why is this important, right? Because what I really want to understand, let's take that filter off. And if we look at, now we see all the related alerts, because what I might see here is a pattern, right? And as security professionals, we're looking for patterns. We're looking for, hey, is this a insider threat? Is this a indicator of compromised credentials? Or maybe it's not even anything that ominous. It's just a case where we need to improve our internal user education and user training around security, right? So, but what we do is we're providing these correlations. You begin to see patterns of, hey, this person doesn't seem to really understand how to deal with and protect the data in our organization, right? So is this something where we need to go train this person? Is this, bad enough that we think this is insider threat or compromised credentials, and we need to take some, further actions and things like that, which of course we can automate those types of actions for you using our workflow engine as well. So that's an overview of what we do in helping you protect Zoom. Again, not something that's typically top of mind for a lot of people when they think about SaaS security and protecting SaaS applications, but think about how many conversations that go on within your organization each and every day on Zoom inside your Zoom tenant, and how much information is being shared back and forth. And is that information publicly available? So this is a great tool, a great method, a great set of policies that you can put into place with our workflows to help make sure that that data inside your Zoom application stays protected. Thank you so much for giving us some time today. We really appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks for joining us here on the DoControl office hours. Have a great one. Bye-bye.